Breaking news coming in, the Treasury has submitted its report to the Constitutional Court on Nkandla. The Constitutional Court had ordered Treasury to determine a reasonable percentage of the costs of non-security upgrades to be paid personally by President Jacob Zuma. The Constitutional Court had ordered Treasury to report back to this court on the outcome of its determination. Let's listen in to what Finance Minister Nkandla has had to say on the matter.
31st of March 2016, the South African Constitutional Court ordered the following, and I quote, "The National Treasury must determine a reasonable percentage of the costs of those measures which ought to be paid personally by the President and report back to this court on the outcome of its determination within 60 days of the date of this order." End of quote. The 60-day period ends on the 28th of June. That's Tuesday of this week. And in accordance with the Constitutional Court order, the National Treasury has prepared the report, and shortly before 3 p.m. on the 27th of June has submitted its report to the court on the President's homestead in Nkandla. All queries in relation to this matter are therefore to be directed to the court itself, and the work of the National Treasury has been completed in respect of the order of the Constitutional Court.
Assignment editor Cecilia Russell joins me on the phone line. Good afternoon to you, Cecilia. What do you make of what's taken place, and also the amount in which President Jacob Zuma has to pay?
Well, there's no amount that the Treasury has said in this particular matter. All that they've said is that in terms of the Constitutional Court case, they have now submitted what is a reasonable percentage of what should be paid back. If you remember correctly, from the Constitutional Court found that President Zuma, if he disagreed with the Public Protector's report on the non-security upgrades, should have gone to court to have them set aside, and he didn't do that. And they, in addition, gave a few very specific instructions for him and for the Treasury. The Treasury was to work out what was a reasonable percentage of these upgrades. And if you can remember, the upgrades include the visitor centre, the swimming pool, the amphitheatre, the cattle culvert, and the chicken run. And these were considered to be non-security upgrades to his home, and that the court then had to work out what a percentage of them would be. For example, the swimming pools cost went into millions, but a reasonable percentage of that may not be obviously in the millions. So from now, it will be up to the Constitutional Court to obviously relay the amount to President Zuma, and then presumably this amount would also be, because it's part of a court order, it will become public, and then the President has been then given, I think, 45 days from tomorrow, because I think that this amount should have been handed to the court by tomorrow to pay it. And both the ANC and various other people have said that President Zuma will be paying this, himself out of his own personal expenses.
There are reports that the reasonable percentage that you were talking about earlier now of the estimated costs of the 5 measures that the President would have to pay personally, as you mentioned, are sitting at around 87%, or will that still be decided?
Well, I have no idea. I have no idea what the Treasury's come up with. Originally, when there was some discussion about amounts, it wasn't as high as 87%. It was because some of the costs, were related to security upgrades, even if these were not their own. So I'm not quite sure what percentage they would be, and there's a reasonable percentage of the reasonable cost. Now, the reasonable cost is that. You must understand that a lot of these things, or these aspects, or these non-security upgrades, were put in at an inflated cost, or they're alleged to be put in by people who were, it's alleged that the architect and others involved because of the inflated the costs and put in the upgrades that cost the state far more than it should have cost. Well, that's certainly one of the many things that have emerged from the story. So what the Treasury would have had to have done is if that swimming cost pool, for example, and this is just a theoretical thing, was put in for a cost of 2 million, but its actual cost, if it was done on the commercial market, is only 800,000. Then obviously that would be, say, for example, what it should reasonably have cost to have put that swimming pool in, and then President Zuma's what he'd have to pay back would have to be a reasonable percentage of that reasonable cost. So it is not based on the inflated costs that the actual upgrades did cost the state and actually cost the taxpayer. That's the fact of the matter, that these are costs that are borne by the taxpayer.
Thank you so much to Cecilia Russell. Of course, Treasury has submitted a report to the Constitutional Court on how much President Jacob Zuma must pay for non-security upgrades at his Nkandla homestead.